We had ladybugs, ball changes every 5 overs, delay tactics, send-offs, shoulder barges or shoulder touches, balls rolling back on stumps. This game had it all, and we didn't even mention the actual game. This is Test cricket. What a match. What an amazing battle between two evenly matched teams, you gotta say, Ishan.
Oh, 100%. And I think uh, to really knock it to the head, first innings they matched, right? Exactly the same score. That rarely happens. Drama on each and every day. Uh incredible batting, incredible bowling. Maybe not the pitch, but very eventful game, and this is why Test cricket lives on.
Oh man, this was a heartbreaker if you're an Indian fan and a must-watch if you're a cricket fan. It was a test match for the ages, one of those matches that you won't forget. And one of us on the pod got to see it live. How was that, Ishan?
Oh, it was great. I was very grateful to be there for days 3, 4, and 5. So saw some great milestones, saw some great drama, saw some chants as well, albeit not at the level at Edgbaston, but still very beautiful game to watch, and it is such a great experience watching Test cricket in England at Lords, and really grateful to experience this.
That's awesome. So I'm thinking we go backwards. We start at the end. That dismissal to end the game.
The thing about
I
cricket,
that will never happen again. That will never happen again.
the thing about cricket is, to your point, something happens that you least expect. Siraj middles it,
Yeah.
and Toronto. I think you saw this as well.
That that
It's
that
so
was reminiscent. That was reminiscent of watching Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli with a back foot defense. All I could picture was that meme on on the internet. I think it was day two or day one where Siraj picked up one of the English batsmen's bat and was posing.
he was
I was like,
practicing
yeah, it's good.
practicing his front foot defense.
Visualization. But then what happened?
Oh man, hit the ball. It could have landed anywhere. It landed in the rough, spun back in slow motion, and boom, England players running to show up. Bashir, of all people, who, with a broken left finger, came to bowl
Yeah.
midway through the fifth day. He didn't even play the first morning session, or even I think even halfway through the
Yeah.
afternoon session. And that, as you mentioned earlier, Tron, would never happen again. But that's cricket. Something different happens each and every single day.
Oh man, I bet the stadium was the atmosphere would have been super intense,
Oh,
especially in that last like half an hour, maybe an hour when Jaddu and Siraj were just getting India closer and closer and closer. It started off with them needing, I think it was 49 runs when they got together still. Shout out to Bumrah and Jaddu's partnership. That was pretty good. I don't know why Boomerang started swatting flies. For some reason, he felt like he needed to swat some flies. I don't know why. He could have just kept his bat out of the way, but maybe he doesn't know how to play those balls. But that's a separate story. But coming back to Siraj, so and Jaddu, so they kept bringing the score down slowly and slowly. It was getting the targets getting smaller. So walk us through what it was like being in the stadium for that last like couple hours.
no, it was edge of the seat drama, and I think you alluded before. When Boomerang came out to bat, obviously, the Indian fans' heads were down. It did seem like it did really seem like England would wrap it up fairly quickly. But then Bumrah played literally one of the best stands I think he's ever played ever.
Yeah.
Great defense, and after every ball that he played without getting out, crowd chanting Bumrah, boom Bumrah. Unfortunately, he got out, and then Siraj, very well played out of his socks, and I can attest to this. Every single ball, I'm not kidding you, every single ball that Siraj played positively, defended it
Mhm.
or let it go, there were chants of DSP throughout the stadium.
Oh man.
Indian fans were encouraging him as much as they could because we knew that it was, an uphill battle for the Indian fans. and
Yeah,
but unfortunate result for Team India. But it was a great fight at least, because it did seem like halfway through the fifth day that England would have wrapped up fairly quickly. But for India to
yeah,
go go past extending the tea delay, because tea was supposed to
yes,
be around 1:30 ish or three
yeah,
o'clock, got extended by 30 minutes, and a lot of the England fans
yeah,
were saying, "Oh, time to wrap it up. The boys are tired. Wrap it up." But India played extremely, extremely well, and
yeah.
the tail, they did as much as they could.
Finally wagged. They finally wagged. It was super inspiring to watch Siraj and Bumrah play. I did share this with you offline, and I'm sharing it on the pod. But I watched the clip after when they were doing the replays of that final ball, and I don't know if you saw Siraj punching the bat on the ground. Man, I actually teared up. I actually teared up
Oh,
watching that.
oh,
Like,
let me tell you something. Siraj cried at the end.
yeah, did he actually?
Siraj had tears in his eyes at
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah, like he was so determined. You could see it in his eyes. Like this guy was like, especially after all the drama that happened on day three, day four, which again we'll get to come out there and to have that determination and fight. Like he was getting smacked around by Archer on the shoulder, on the ribs, and he just kept at it. And again, it was a perfect defense. It was just the luck was with England.
Yeah, yeah, and we did not even mention the on-field chirping that England was doing, because
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, seeing it live, England was getting frustrated. They were getting
Yep.
extremely, extremely frustrated, and you know how it goes. If you can't get them out with the ball, you try breaking their concentration, and unfortunately, it may have worked in Siraj's unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, and we got to talk about the guy at the other end, Jaddu. Like, what an innings that was! Just full of grit. He's got four half centuries in a row now this series, and so much determination is in his eyes too. He put away the sword celebration. He knew that wasn't the time for it, and it was a phenomenal innings of just like determination, grit, perseverance. And yeah, some people out there, I'm not going to say names, but very famous commentators. Apparently, Jaddu should have been a little more attacking. But then my argument for that is if he was attacking and got out, you're going to say, oh, he should have played defensively.
Exactly, exactly. And it did seem like the formula of, Jadeja playing the first four balls of the over and then looking to rotate strike on the fifth and sixth ball. It was working for the Boomer partnership, and it was looking like it was working for
Yeah.
the Siraj partnership. So the
Yeah.
formula was working, and if you go back to when Boomer had come in, it was still around 80 runs left, brought it down to
Yeah.
2 with the same formula. They were extremely, extremely patient, and not afraid to put away the bad deliveries, because Jadeja did have a few handful of boundaries as well to make sure
Yeah.
the run rate was going. But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
great stand by Jaddu, and there's a stat going around. Comment if you think if you're able to verify it. Apparently, Jadeja has more 50 plus scores in England than Ben Stokes, and I think that's an incredible, incredible stat. And there was I think the same commentator who called Jaddu a it's and bits player. What was it? What was the term he used?
Bits and pieces, bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces player. But Jadeja really showed that he can sometimes really um, turn the match around. And it did seem like
Yeah.
at one point India was done and dusted, and it was basically a few overs left. But to bring it right to the end, extending T, extremely, extremely well played, and just goes to show what value Jadeja brings to the team.
And that's why he's the number one all-rounder in the world. That's exactly why. And he is definitely going to be missed when he's done with the game because he's literally just like how Stokes mentioned, he brings four assets to the game. So does
Yes.
Jadeja. He's a bowler, he's a batter, he's a fielder, and he brings experience. Maybe he may not be the captain, but he definitely brings experience from a tactical perspective, I'm sure, to the leadership group.
Yeah,
So you can't
and
discount all of that.
And on the experience front, I do want to mention one thing that I didn't notice as well, and others in the crowd had noticed as well. When Jadeja was
Yeah.
batting with Siraj, you did see that the England players were chirping, trying to get under their skin. And Jadeja, after every ball was bowled at him, he kind of walked horizontally past the England players, away from the wicket keepers, away from Steely Point, to essentially stay away from the chirping. And then when
Yeah.
the ball went back to their mark, he finally made his way back to the crease. And then that's literally what Siraj was doing as well, because the England players were berating him, and you saw Siraj take a page out of Jadeja's book, where after every ball, Siraj would literally walk 7, 8 paces down the line, away from the chirping, and then when the bowler came to his mark, then he finally made his way there. Kind of did eliminate some of the noise, and it really put the batsman in focus, which is what you have to do at that point in time.
Yeah, and shout out to England for the sportsmanship at the end too, like going up to Siraj. Yeah, they like you said, they were chirping the entire time. And there were lots of sledging being done, I'm sure, words that we can't say or you can't hear on stump cam. But right at the end, to watch everyone go up to Siraj, put their arm around him. I think it was Root that did that. Crawley did that. Shook his hand, and everyone shook his hand. It was great. It was great to see. So definitely a lot of respect between the two teams, which is what you want to see. You want to see the battles on the field. I love the spice. I love the sledging and all. You need that in cricket because cricket is not a physical sport. And so you need that. You need the verbal banter and all of that. But to see that when the game is done, you're shaking hands, all is good. Your friends or whatever, colleagues, whatever you want to call it. That's how it should be.
Yeah, yeah, and there is respect for a competitive and hard fought battle. That's what India really
Yeah.
did at the end. And no matter who the opposition is, and no matter who the commentator is, you do have to bow your head at the fact that India didn't grovel and roll over. India,
Yeah.
played to the last ball as they could, and really did stretch England. And incredible, incredible feat for India, but unfortunate, the wrong side of the result for the Indian fans.
Yeah. So what went wrong? What would you pinpoint? I know it's hard because in a test there's always ebbs and flows, but how did India end up 87 for 7? That's what I don't understand. Like after England were all out for 192, I thought this was India's game to lose at that point.
Yep, exactly that, and even the crowd as well. After England's second innings, getting a score sub 200, fourth end of the fourth day, entire fifth day left, the crowd was very much in favor of India sort of cruising to victory. But those early wickets on for India's second inning stand late in the fourth day is, I think, what really put India under pressure. You got the quick dismissals of Jaswal, Karun Nair, and Shubman Gill. Your top batters up at the front, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, fortunate. I'm not even talking about the fifth day debacle, but that I think really put India on the back foot. And on the fifth day
Yeah.
as well, when you lose an additional 1 or 2 wickets after that, then it's your game
Yeah.
then it's an uphill game for you. So we could probably
Yeah.
talk about some of the details of those wickets, but I think that was cluster of wickets at the end of the fourth day, and those
Yes.
1 or 2 wickets at the beginning of the fifth day is what really put India in
Yeah.
the back foot. Because in my eyes, if we forget about some of the other, I would say, key moments in days three and potentially
Yeah.
early day four, the
We'll get
scores,
to that.
yeah, the scores were poised at the end of each inning. So
Yeah.
it was essentially,
Yeah.
one inning game at that point. So,
Yeah. You couldn't. Go ahead.
no, to your point, I was just saying the bowlers did their job. You really
Yeah.
had to let the batters really do their job.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in the second innings there were a couple of dismissals that could have, like, looking back, they would have probably wanted to approach it differently. One is Yashasvi Jaiswal. He looks a bit at sea against Archer, which is very interesting because he feels like he has a lot of time when he plays, but for some reason Archer's seems to have hurried him. I don't know if it's the angle. I don't know if it's the way Archer just strolls in, and maybe he's just not used to that, the way the ball comes out of the hand. I don't know what happened, but he didn't look like himself. And I think Sangakkara pointed this out too on comms, with the way he approached the second innings, especially where a couple balls that he would have put away easily for four, he kind of like just let it be, let it go. And then the ball that he goes after is wide outside off stump when he should be cutting it over point or covers. He tries to pull that ball, which makes no sense.
And I think the unfortunate part is, and I think this is the reason why, these are colleagues from Rajasthan Royals. Archer has probably
Yeah. Oh, ah,
Archer has probably faced Jaiswal in the nets, knows what gets him. And as much as people talk about the merits and the positives of the IPL, it also
that's a
allows
good
players,
shout.
yeah, it also allows players to understand where some weaknesses may lie, or what may bring other players to become a little more uncomfortable. So I think that's where Archer may have figured Jaiswal out. But yeah, unfortunate for Jaiswal, and getting out of duck second innings, unfortunate.
Yeah, I think the trigger for the collapse on that day four was Karun Nair's dismissal because Karun Nair and KL Rahul steadied the ship really well. And I have no idea what Karun Nair was thinking. I don't know if it was a brain fade. He started thinking about playing for the close. But why would you leave a ball on that end when you know the slope is going to most probably bring the ball back in? And that's exactly what happened, and he doesn't play a shot, which then increases the likelihood of the umpire raising his finger. And Rifle was like, he didn't even wait a millisecond. He just raised the finger. And that triggered the next wicket, Shubman Gill, who got a good ball as well. He looked a little edgy too. And then, of course, you had Akashdeep at the very end, but I think he did his job. But Karun Nair, I believe, that triggered that collapse because India should have ended day four with one down, at most two down, but to end up four down was the I felt was the game right there and made it tough.
No, I think you're exactly right there. And I think we'll talk a little bit about Shuman Gill's dismissal in a bit. But on Garner, I think this is his last innings in the white
Yeah.
for Team India. What are your thoughts on that?
I I think DK said the same thing. When and some of the other commentators as well. When he's played, he looks solid. He looks like he belongs. He plays his shots well, he defends well, but for some reason he can't get past that 30. He's had what, three starts now, three or four starts now in the six innings that he's played, and he's given it away. Right when it was time for him to start cashing in a little bit, right? Yeah, you can say he played his role and he set it up well for Shubman Gill, like in the last test, and maybe in the first innings as well. For the when you're batting 20-25 overs, you get the shine off the new ball. You kind of did your job, right? But he had the ability, or this was his moment to get India to victory or very close to it, and he goofed it.
No, no, he did. He did. It is it's unfortunate because, as you mentioned, he looked good. And watching day four, you heard a lot of people in the crowd as well, where I was there, saying that the key difference between the England batting and the Indian batting was Indian batting, and this is both for KL Rahul and Karunair. They were playing beautiful shots, classic cricketing shots where you hear ping off the bat, fielders can't go anywhere
Yeah.
because it pierces the fielders going straight to four. And they were looking good. And you mentioned this earlier as well. When you have a start, when you've settled in, you have to start cashing it in. And that is
Yeah.
unfortunately where he just hasn't clicked. He just hasn't
Yeah.
clicked.
Yeah, super unfortunate. All right, so we'll talk about England setting up that chase, or at least they tried to. So England were looking good. They were 154 for four. Joe Root, Stokes put up a partnership. You kind of felt like that was the key partnership there. India had to get one of them out. Joe Root once again looking like the player of full class. We'll talk about his 100 in the first innings, but they looked like they were threatening to take the game away from India. And then the bowler that you would not expect to change the game comes in and walks away with four in 12 overs for spit, as they say down under.
Oh, and four not LBWs, not slip catches, four bowled.
Bold.
Clean, clean.
Yes.
It was a bowling performance for the ages for Washi. People in the crowd were saying, "Oh, like reminiscent of some Ashwin type of deliveries." He was bowling extremely well, and it just didn't seem like they were able to pick him. And you know, he really kind of showed what he brings to the table. And to your point, that's exactly what India needed at the point to break that partnership.
Yeah.
And then, he kind of wrapped it up at the end as well. And, you saw the emotions in him as well when I think he picked up his fourth wicket, just that extra celebration. He kind of brought India way back into the game to, get a really chaseable total with lots and
Yeah.
lots of time to spare.
Yeah. Do you feel Shubman Gill brought him on too late? Because he came on in the 40, like around the 40th over, which which is pretty late. But do you think Shubman Gill should have brought him on earlier?
See, that's where, I think obviously, in hindsight, it's easy to say that, but you sometimes look at the who the other players are at the other end, right? I think Jadeja, left-hander. I think Stokes and Root, right-handers. You kind of look at that combination and be like, okay, that's possibly favorable. Do you really want to bring a
Yeah.
right-hand off spinner? But it's hindsight, right? And I think, yeah,
Yeah.
but hopefully after this performance, um, his Washington's name now comes a little more earlier when it comes to sort of bowling options for Team India.
Yeah, it was nice to see him do well with the ball because we are used to seeing him do above expectations with the bat. But there was always question marks around his bowling and the ability to create problems for the batsman. And but that got answered, I felt, in this innings. And now he seems like the second choice after Jadeja when it comes to bowling all rounder, a spin bowling all rounder, I should say.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. But I mean, don't get me wrong, incredible sort of bag that he brings for Team India. Because sometimes, to your
Yeah.
point, I think we saw this in the first innings. He really brought it with the bat, and then second innings,
Yeah.
out of nowhere, brought it with the ball. So, and you need those performances for sometimes one of those players when, for example, Bumrah's just not getting those wickets, or or a batsman struggling. So, no, I entirely agree with you. He is that great option to have.
Yeah, so great segue for the first innings. So India needed to get to 387. England put up 387 through a fantastic Joe Root under 100. It was a phenomenal 100. I don't think he gave anybody a chance. He didn't look like getting out. He didn't give any chances, and brilliant 100 supported by Ben Stokes, Jamie Smith, and Bryden Cars. That partnership was super annoying, which we'll get to. But India were able to match England's first innings target. I felt I felt that again here you could say there was a turning point because India should have had a lead of at least 50 to 75, minimum 50, the way they were playing, the way Punt and Rahul were playing, and you can attest to this, you watched this live, but it didn't look like either of them were going to get out.
No, no, not at all. And in that morning session, even from the crowds as well, just hearing some of the people talk,
Yeah.
a lot of them were one calling it boring, but to your point, this is Test cricket, and second they were expecting a lead. They were
Yeah.
100% expecting a lead, and then out of the blue, and I'm telling you, no one was expecting this. There's no pressure, no chance, nothing. Out of the blue, something happens and breaks the partnership. What were your thoughts on
Oh
that?
my gosh. Yeah. So again, brain fades, getting closer to the end of the session, wanting milestones. I don't know why Punt and Rahul were thinking about that. The biggest sin in cricket is a run out. And we've talked about this on previous episodes. My dad and I have been talking about this for years. Get out any other way. Get out any other way. But please don't get out run out. That is just criminal. But shout out to Ben Stokes. Like, come with the man, come with the hour, right? What is that? What was that quote by Nasser Hussain? I think it was in the World Cup where Ben Stokes took that catch that was unbelievable, and Nasser Hussain goes, "Ben Stokes, you cannot do that." Ben Stokes. It was one of those, like, you cannot do that. How he picks up the ball with one hand, I believe. No, he didn't spin around because he throws with his right.
Right hand,
So
yeah.
he picks up the ball, and he talked about this in the press match conference where he said that through his peripherals he saw a little bit of a stutter in Punt's run as Punt was looking to complete it, and so in the moment he felt that he should throw it to Punt's end, and that's what he does, and he hit the bullseye. and Punt was well short of his ground, and that completely changed the trajectory of India's innings from there. Until that moment, it felt like Punt was going to get another 100, and the partnership was going to go 300 plus, and India were going to get a huge lead and bat England out the game again.
Yeah, and the saddest part is, I think you mentioned this, like the sin of getting a run out. I think an
Yeah,
even greater sin of this is when you get a run out, when you have such a good partnership and a long partnership. You have an understanding of running between the wickets. You've guys batted for hours. It makes no sense to have it run out that end. Maybe perhaps you kind of maybe understand if it's in the first 1 or 2 overs between a new partnership,
yeah,
understanding is not there. But when you're settled in, when literally, the ball's not doing spit, when bowlers are getting tired, when I think Wokes, I think that point, I think some of the chirps are going on. Wokes was bowling slow. People thought Wokes was hurt, right? In terms of how slow he was bowling. It was very, very unfortunate. And to your point, that was a key turning point because right after that, KL Rahul, 100
yeah,
runs to show up Bashir.
100 and out. Yeah, yeah, 100 and out. KL Rahul, it felt like another lapse of concentration, got to a milestone, and then he got out. But then you had Jaddu, first innings, half century, 72 with Nitish Kumar Reddy and Washi. That sort of like got India out of that little bit of a hole where things could have happened, wrapped up pretty quickly. And they got India to 376 for six. And then from there, to score 11 runs for the last four wickets, I thought that was also the game right there. Again, I know we keep pointing different things, and that's what the test is about. But that is another area where when you look at the second innings, you're like, why didn't you do this? Why don't you do this all the time? Why do you feel that you have to score runs? When Jaddu got out, and I think Washi was still, yeah, Washi was left not out, wasn't he? Yeah, he was the last man out. Yeah,
But it was,
Washi was the last one out. So again, you have a batter on the other end. So I feel as a tail ender, if there's a batter on the other end, just find a way to stick it out like you did in the second innings, right? To lose those last four for 11 runs, like at least score 50 runs, at least get a lead, right? At that point, when it was 376 for six, I was feeling good. I was like, oh, great. Like, Tayl's going to add another 30, 40, 50. We're going to get to like 420. I'll be good. But at the same time, a side of me was like, I don't trust this tail at all. And that's exactly what happened.
I know. And I think, again, if you quickly do a quick comparison between how
Yeah.
the tail played in the first inning versus second innings, maybe
Yeah.
maybe the tail should definitely just, hey, be be focused on defending because they could defend.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
rush things. You don't have to play a
Yeah.
shot on every ball just because you think you're gonna get out. Trust in your defense because as we've seen, their defense worked in the second innings.
Yeah.
Trust it
On a day five pitch with the ball doing random stuff.
with so much
Absolutely.
with so much pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could argue and say that maybe it's the pressure that they need. But
Yep.
I feel our tail, they don't have stroke play. They can't play. They can slog, but I think in test matches you don't need slogging unless, of course, you're in a position where you're looking for quick runs, right? You need players that can just back time and just like stay there, put wear and tear in the opposition bowlers, keep them on the field longer, get them exhausted more. I feel that's a bigger benefit than trying to score runs, especially if you know you just don't have the stroke play. Like Bumrah has made a couple lucky. I think he's had 150 in that Lord's game 4 years ago, where
Yeah,
Virat Kohli said, "Let's give them hell for 60 overs."
yeah.
Um,
He had 31 over
and
that match.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. So that was all luck too. Like I
Yep.
remember that innings. Like you had like boundaries over the slips on the over fine leg, like all kinds of random stuff. So Bumrah, Siraj, Akashdeep can hit, but again, I don't think you need that. I think you need them. I think you need to just trust your defense. Just trust that you get your bat and your body behind the line of the ball, and you can keep it out. And I feel like if you can keep out one end and you hang in there with the other batter, then you can put a partnership together, even if it's at 15 or 20 runs per wicket. Because right now you're not even getting 15 or 20 runs as the four of them together.
I know. We know how important 22 runs is because India lost by 22 runs. And,
That's right.
it's unfortunate. I want to say two quick things. One thing to what you alluded to before about key moments and mistakes. Again, just trying to tie back to some of the previous iterations we had about test matches. Test matches is about who makes the least amount of mistakes. And
Yeah.
India fortunately made the most mistakes this match. And I know we'll talk about some of the stats as well. We'll save that for a bit. And secondly, I want to ask you a question. What
Yeah.
is our expectation for Nitish Kumar Reddy? What should he do for us to be like he is a good addition for this team?
This is another great segue, because we can talk about the first innings of England's batting, and I say that because Nitish Kumar's bowling performance in the first innings was heartening to see, because
Yes.
I think finally we have a fourth bowler. It may still be too early. I know it's just one. He did bowl in the second innings too, and he got Crawley out again. Um, I I feel that he's improved a lot since Australia, and I think he talked about it too. He's been working hard on it. He recognizes that India needs his bowling, and he's been working with, no, you can work with a better person than Morne Morkel, one of the goats of the game. And
Mhm.
I feel that the expectation for him is to be that bowler that maybe gives you a wicket or two, but doesn't leak that many runs, and is able to um, play that fourth change bowler that reduces the workload on the main three. And then as a batter, I felt he did well in both innings. I think he has the game to play attacking, but I think he was playing the situation, which is the right thing to do. You could say maybe play your natural game, but I think he has the ability, based on what we saw in Australia, to play attacking and to play defensive. Like, he has the ability to switch gears, and I think he did really well. And I feel if we can get this out of him every game, little contributions like this, and every now and then get a nice 50, 70, or even 100 here and there, I feel that's good enough for his role in the team when you have Jaddu there. I think once Jaddu is gone, that's when the expectations are going to rise for the all-rounder.
That's a good caveat at the end, because as you're speaking, I was pretty much very disagreeing with you because I have a slightly different thought. I think when you're when you first of all, he is a batting all rounder. He's not a bowling all rounder. So
Yeah.
being a batting all rounder, his inclusion of the team, and I think you mentioned this, his bowling is good to have. Those one or two wickets was a heavenly surprise. But batsmen and test cricketers are made for these crucial moments. And I think, what he had 30 odd runs, 30 runs in the first innings, 13 runs in the second innings, when the pressure was on him. If Rockwell is your idol and you're a batsman and you have to be clutch and you have to perform well, and this is test cricket. This is test cricket at the highest level. You have to
Yeah.
score runs. You have to score runs, and especially look. I think in both innings he played a lot of balls. So
Yeah.
please, 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 in my eyes, I think for his expectation list, in my eyes, more runs. You got to be able to put up more runs. I think to your point, this match was different because he got those wickets to maybe compensate for the lack of runs he made. But
Yeah.
we can't expect those amount of wickets and those quality wickets because to your point, he broke that opening partnership. He got a couple early wickets as well. But from a batting perspective, I think he needs to step it up.
Yeah, that's a very interesting shout. The way I'm seeing it is, in the first innings, for example, he was able to string a partnership of 68, no, 672, 72 with Jaddu. I feel that is important, being able to be part of a partnership that stretches the score further
Mhm.
rather than an individual milestone, because I feel in this current team, with his role and where he's batting, I don't believe it's his job to score a 50 or a 100. I believe his job is to build a partnership with whoever else is there to stretch India's ability to score runs. That is why India is not playing five out and out bowlers, right? They're playing three all rounders and just three out and out bowlers, right? So because India wants batting depth, and I feel that they're getting that. I feel to have the expectation for him to score a 50 or 100 is a little too high. He may do it, but I think he's still young. He's still learning his game. First time in England too, right? So I feel like he needs that rope to prove himself. But for this current team of what they're trying to achieve, I think that he did his role. He did his role in this game. Even in the second innings, him and Jaddu, like he was so distraught when he got out in at the stroke of lunch, right? And I'm sure the whole atmosphere went down after that
And
because he looked solid. He looked solid. He was getting his bat behind the ball. He was playing defensive. I think they had a plan to just like hang in there, tire the bowlers, and I felt like that would have turned. I'm maybe going off on a tangent here, but England's bowlers were tiring. I don't know if you noticed this on the ground, but they ended up bowling 75 overs. And they were Archer's playing his first game after 4 years. And Stokes literally went for a 10 over spell and a 9 over spell because they didn't have Bashir. So I think they just wanted to tire. And then eventually, like, they'll get a few bad balls and they almost did it. Right. So I feel in the context of the game, he did his job.
no, fair point, fair point, fair point. But one thing I did want to mention, just to wrap up on the topic of Nitish Kumar Reddy,
Yeah.
second innings. One thing that I did, obviously, I did notice when and this is back to your point, he was looking good. So when he was forming that partnership with Jaddu at the end there, I believe it was Jaddu, he was making great contact with the ball in terms of forward drives, not defense, forward drives. But every time he hit those drives, it was meeting the fielders. And I'm not talking about one or two
Mhm.
times. I'm talking about six, seven, eight times where even the crowd at the sound of the ball hitting the bat, they were cheering because they thought it was a boundary with the intent, with the way that it looked, front foot planted, fully driving the ball.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Each time it was going to the fielder.
Yeah.
So interesting there, maybe he needs to find a way to hit the gaps a little bit more. Because to your
Yeah.
point, if he hit even
Good
50,
fielding positions?
potentially, but to your point, even if he hit 50% of those, that's
Yeah.
potentially 22 runs.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, so continuing with that first innings, India's bowling, they did pretty well to keep England at 387. You could argue and say that once again they let it slip because at the end of day one, England were clearly in the driver's seat with
Yep,
Joe Root beckoning on 100, and I think it was Stokes at the crease, if I'm not mistaken, once again.
yep,
Yeah.
let's see.
Was it? Yes, it
Yep,
was Stokes. It was
yep.
Stokes and Root again in the first innings, right? And it looked ominous again. Stokes was looking like he was coming back in form, and it felt like England would push past 300 with just these two, and then Bumrah does Bumrah things and just rips open that lower order, and England go from 4 down to 7 down in a heartbeat. And at that point, you're thinking, okay, let's wrap this up, boys, under 300. And then what happens? Brighton Cars, Wokes, and Jamie Smith. Sorry, not Wokes. Brighton Cars and Jamie Smith put up a partnership. And you, once again, talking about points to improve, right? Another moment where England was able to resurrect or go back ahead when India were threatening to uh, get them to a below par target.
Yep, yep. And each run matters, and that partnership was super, super important. Cars, he looked good. Again, I just think that perhaps this is just one of those innings where Taylor just does well. Jamie Smith though looks good, and he is a key wicket.
Yeah.
I think to really break through to the tail, you really have to get Jamie Smith out early, because when he's able to form the partnership, he's able to go for quick runs at a pretty good pace. But again, we used to, Team India used to always blame Rohit's captaincy for not getting the tailenders out. But
Mhm.
at some point, the onus and ownership needs to go back on the bowlers, where you're bowling at the tail. You got to find a way to get those out, because again, we're talking about 50 odd runs from Jamie Smith. Again, I won't maybe perhaps I wouldn't put him in the same category as the tail enders, but we're rounding cars, 50 plus runs. Those are
Yeah.
worth weight in gold. Those are worth its weight in gold. And those are frustrating runs. because India is so close that the bowlers are getting frustrated, the batters are getting frustrated. So, just to get away from that mental space, you got to get those wickets early for, making sure your bowlers don't get tired. And second, for the momentum.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. I think India should have been able to wrap up that innings under 350 at most, but to allow them to get to 387, as you said, every run matters, and in the end, those little things made a difference. And then I want to make one final comment before we preview the next test here.
Yep, yep, yep.
So one of the scores that stands out on the scorecard is extras. India gave up 63 extras in both innings combined versus England's 30. That's 33 runs right there, more than what England gave up. And again, finding faults, right? That's another place where India could have improved. And
Mistake.
I, yes, and Jarrell did keep a lot of those overs. Now, no shade against him. A lot of those, I'm sure you saw at the ground too, was just balls that kind of like swung a lot away from him, or they were really wide for him to catch. And so you can't put all the blame on him, but another area where India could look to improve. But because had they even given half of those, there's the game again.
Exactly, exactly. Again, it's a collection of mistakes that really break a team in Test cricket, and unfortunately, extras, you know, and even if you think about it, you don't. It's not typical wide extras that you have in like white ball cricket. It's
Mhm.
really bad balls that go for boundaries, or
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, and it goes back to leaking runs, getting the line and length proper. But yeah, those extra 30 plus runs in comparison to England's extras, you can't be doing that.
Yeah. And I think in cricket, leg buys is forgivable because you can't always predict where it's gonna go after it hits the batsman's body, right? Or the pads, gear, whatever. But I think buys is unforgivable because buys is either the bowler has sprayed or the wicketkeeper just had poor judgment, right? And I think those would be considered what do they say in tennis, forced errors, right? Those would be forced errors where it's an error on the part of the player. And I think India had, if I do the math here, India had about 36 of those runs from just buys. So again, you give away just half of that, there's 18 runs that you take back,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
yeah, so lot to unpick and unpack with this game. At the end of the day, what I'll say is I'm proud of the way India played. Again, we have to have the perspective that this is a young team. They're figuring themselves out. It's a new captain. It's a fairly new coach, you could say, right? Or a new partnership between management and the team. And so I think that they've come a long way in the series already. For this to be as close as it is has been amazing to see.
Yeah, I want to disagree with that one. Uh,
Okay.
this series could easily be 3-zip for Team India.
For
Easily
sure.
3-zip. Each
Yeah.
game that India has lost, there were multiple opportunities for India to really not win by a small margin, to really win big in both games that they lost. But again, collection of mistakes in the first test, collection of mistakes in the third test. Um,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because now you have I know we're getting right to this topic right now because you have, players who've played all three tests. People are tired. It's a long
Yeah.
series. So you're going to be again going back to the term forced. You're going to be forced to make some changes. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. And obviously, England will have to make some changes as well. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you can easily mask this away by saying it's a new team, management captain relationship is fresh, but we all can see a possibility of India being 3-0 up in this series and winning this series at this point.
So isn't that what inexperience is? That's what inexperience is. And I think they have to go through these battles and experiences in order to then come out the other side in the future. Because if you look at just from an experience standpoint, I would say England has way more experience than this Indian side, especially the fact that England's playing in England, right?
I saw this stat as well, and again,
Okay.
I'm wrong. I know
Yeah.
this was right for the second test. Maybe it's not right for the third test, but I know it's for sure right in the second test. The average age for England was lower than the average age for Team India.
Oh, really?
I
Oh,
know that was
that's interesting.
I know that was again, I'm for sure that was correct for the second test, but
Yeah.
maybe because obviously there's some changes in the third test,
Yeah.
with Archer's inclusion and whatnot. But you know, we can say they're new, but you have some
But
experience with
what about matches? Like that's age is one thing, and then
true.
cricket experience is a different thing,
That's
right?
true. That's true. That's true. Yep. No, I
Yeah.
definitely see that difference. But if we're talking about ages, and you know, it's interesting. But I do see your point on sort of experience, and again, we'll stick with we'll say experience in international cricket. It
Yeah.
does allow you to not make mistakes, or allows you to identify areas where you made mistakes and then rectify it, right?
Yeah.
But you know, there's also the argument of you're at the big boys table now. No one's waiting for you. This is a
Yeah.
marquee series. You're playing
Yeah.
at Lords, right? This is a place where you make your name, and all these
Yeah.
players should be wanting to make their name as those who were there before them. So
Yeah.
I get your point. But yeah, it is definitely an interesting time in India's cricket.
Yeah. 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 And yeah, it is. I really hope that they learn from these experiences because um, they have such a high ceiling. This team, when you look at it on paper, they have such a high ceiling, and I feel like these experiences will hold them in good stead, which is again where I think England has the advantage because they've been through these experiences when they played the Ashes. If you look at the last Ashes, a lot of these players did play that Ashes series, and they came out of that 2-2 or morally won the Ashes, as I like to say. But so I feel like to have a captain like Stokes that has been the captain for many years also makes a difference. Shubman Gill is still learning the game, right? Learning the tricks of the trade, let's say. And so that I feel all plays an impact as to how England were able to, let's say, get ahead in those 50-50 situations, which is point proven in this game, right? It's like 387, 380 versus 387. Like it doesn't get more 50-50 than that. And then England, India should get ahead of the game by getting England out from 192, and they still lose in that position. Shows us how England can battle in situations where they may be behind the eight ball, but they know what to do in situations to get ahead.
No, no,
And I think India's not there yet.
yeah, no, no, I definitely see that. So now, I guess
Yeah.
looking forward to the fourth test, what changes do you potentially see for Team India going forward?
That's a tough one. I think the main one that a lot of people talk about, it's not Bumrah, it's Karun Nair. I think Karun Nair's question is going to be asked more because he hasn't made a 50 yet. He hasn't really done much. So I think his spot is up for grabs. I'd like to see him play. I think he's there. I think he just needs a little more trust. He is also playing out of position, so you could argue and say that get someone in that plays that position, like an Iswaran or a Sai Sudarshan. But I don't know. I think that's a spot that's up for grabs. And then Bumrah, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I don't know. But other than that, I don't see too many changes being made. Old Trafford can offer a turn. So maybe we still play the two spin bowling all rounders and KR again. But you tell me, how do you see this playing out with the squad selections?
Yeah, I think well, firstly, I think I do agree with the current air comment you made. But I'm gonna go a little more aggressive. I think he's out. I think he's what 33, 34 right now. He's made
Yeah.
three or four 30 plus scores, and one of them was a 303 score. So he's, I think, literally like one of the only players who has zero 50s and one 300. So Take that what you want with that stat. um,
On a
no,
flatty?
on a flatty. So I guess he can stick with Runji. Again, no disrespect to him. But I think it's time to really change up because again, number three for Team India is such an for any team,
Yes.
such an important batting position. It is such an important
Yeah.
batting position, right? When your opener
Yeah.
gets out, you have to steady the ship to make sure that the fourth, fifth, sixth batters are able to play with the old ball. It's very important, and you gave him three tests, right? Three tests.
Yeah. Three
No,
tests, 6 innings.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, no 50 yet. You've given him you've extended the rope for him in my eyes, right?
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I do see Eastward or Sai Sudarshan coming in. I think before I was slightly more favorable in bringing Sai Sudarshan in, but I think now just looking back and understanding a little bit more about Eastward's game, perhaps his inclusion, perhaps he should be included. Sai
Yeah.
Sudarshan super super young, and if you look at some of his domestic scores, or sorry, domestic experience, obviously it's not as much as Eastward. So maybe bring Eastward in, because then obviously you bring that experience in as well.
Yeah.
And bowling perspective, yeah, I'm gonna flip it. I think Bumrah plays, but I think Siraj needs rest. He's played
Yeah.
2 tests in a row, right? I think this is Akashdeep's second test. So I think
Mhm.
Siraj, I think again, I don't think Siraj will ask for rest. I don't think the guy knows what rest means, right? But I think for betterment of him and Team India, because
Yeah.
he's one of those players that all formats, he does what he does. You know, rest Siraj, and again, not talking about his performance at all, or what he brings to the table. I think just more for the collective benefit of the team. I think you rest Siraj and you bring in Arshdeep. I do want to
Uh,
play, get that left-hander option in, and hey, just see how he goes. You may uncover a gem. So I'm gonna change it up a little bit. I think Arshdeep comes in. So what are your thoughts on that?
I like it. I like the idea of giving rest to Siraj, but there's also a 9 day gap. And I think Siraj has enough time to rest. And I don't I because Bumrah is also coming back from injury. That's one of the reasons why he's doing the workload management, right? I don't think we need to do that with Siraj. I think Siraj should be able to play that match. And then if anything, maybe you rest him on the fifth game. But if it's 2-2, I don't think you're resting him. I think you're playing him all 5 tests, right?
Oh yeah,
And I think
he wouldn't want to rest. He'll be on
yeah,
the
he would want to.
he'll be on the field before the game sheet's even announced.
He already put his name on there.
He's practicing his front foot defense.
Yeah, so I'd like if Boomerang doesn't play, I'd like to see Arshdeep come in. 100% I'd like to see Arshdeep come in. I think it's high time we got a left armor. Just give England a different angle. Because it's been 3 tests, they've seen more or less the same thing. I wouldn't go back to Prashant Krishna. I would try a different angle.
No way!
Uh,
Can't believe you mentioned him on this pod.
yeah, I mean, who else you got? You got Harshit Rana as another option, but I think it'll come down to sorry to say his name again, Prashant Krishna and Arshdeep Singh as a replacement for either Bumrah, Siraj, whoever they decide to rest. I think India should play Bumrah. 9 days rest. Next game is super important. I know we said this last game too on test two, and then India goes ahead and rests Bumrah. I would play Bumrah to make it a 2-2, and then maybe you go for someone else in the fifth game.
Yeah, no, yeah, I see that as well. Yep, good shout.
Awesome. All right. Lots that we covered today. Good place to wrap it up. We can't wait for test number 4. This series has been nothing short of being epic and amazing. We can't wait for test 4. I don't think either of us are going to be there live, but we'll definitely be watching it live from the comfort of our couches and TV. So we'll see you for the next test match. That's it from us. That stops.